Who launches a cyber attack on a children's hospital? Late last year, sick kids faced just such a hit, and it was by no means alone. Another recent incident targeted the LCBO, presumably in search of users' financial data. Such incursions cost companies millions and strike fear in the hearts of anyone whose information may be compromised. Can cyber security keep up? Let's ask. Tracy Dallaire, she's Director of Information Security at McMaster University. Neil Desai, Vice President at Magnet Forensics and Senior Fellow at CIGI, the Center for International Governance Innovation. And Charles Finley, Founding Executive Director of the Rogers Cybersecure Catalyst at TMU, Toronto Metropolitan University. Great to have you three at our table for a very timely and important conversation. Charles, to you first. Who the hell launches a cyber attack on a kid's hospital, honestly?
Well, this is part of the new normal. And in fact, it's exactly children's hospitals and other critical infrastructure that are more and more becoming the target of cybersecurity attacks. We've seen attacks on hospitals, we've seen attacks on the energy infrastructure, transportation, communication, education sector at all levels. So ransomware attackers, which is what happened with Lockbit attacking the Sick Kids Hospital, ransomware attackers are looking for maximum leverage. They care only about money and the disruption of these important organizations. So attacking a children's hospital is, to them, without any scruples and acting obviously in a criminal manner, is exactly what they think is going to generate the leverage to get a maximum ransomware return.
That's what I was going to ask, Trey. Is there no shame anymore? Like, even criminals have a code.
Well, they're cyber criminals. They want to make money. So they're looking for opportunities to make money and create the maximum amount of incentive for the organization to pay the money so they can get back to business. And so, they are entrepreneurs and they are business people trying to make money, and they'll go after anything.
Can you tell us how this works? If you wanted to attack a hospital, how do you do it?
Sure. Well, I think one fundamental difference from today's fraudster, the cyber criminal, and yesterday's, which plays into the question you're asking, is they don't live in our community, right? They don't have to look anyone in the eye and say, hey, I'm attacking an institution that keeps children healthy or tries to bring them back to health. What's happening here is most of these attacks are emanating from abroad, often in countries that don't have extradition treaties or any sort of normalized relations with countries in the West, like Canada, the United States, the UK. So, I think people assume to be a cyber criminal today, you have to be a technical savant. And the reality is you and I can go on the internet right now and find very simple attacks and play a volume game to see who will fall for my trap, for my phishing scheme, for my ransomware. And the challenge here is the most vulnerable in society, that small and medium enterprise, senior citizens, immigrants, and institutions like hospitals and education and institutions who don't have expensive cybersecurity solutions today are the ones falling victim. These attacks are on all of us. Those who are falling victim are those who are the most vulnerable in our society.
But Tracy, it feels different now. I understand going after vulnerable senior citizens who are not sophisticated perhaps in these ways. That's been happening for a long time. Going after energy installations, nuclear power plants. Is this different now? It feels like it.
It is different, and I think part of that comes from our society and the world is different. So the way we operate, everything's interconnected. Everything's using technology to run our systems. So our world's different, and what threat actors are doing then, or cyber criminals are doing, is different, and we're feeling and seeing that difference. And I really look at, we have a very interconnected ecosystem of what people do, the technology we use, and our processes. And so our approaches have to really tackle all different fronts, not just the technology, but how we behave and act in our world today.
How vulnerable do you think our major institutions are right now?
I think they're very vulnerable. I think they're vulnerable because investments, need to be made. There's been good investments. There's been good movement by governments at all levels. There's been good movement by public and private sector organizations, but much more clearly needs to be done. The international cybersecurity threat environment is extremely serious. Building on Neil's point, the fact is that these ransomware attackers are attacking from jurisdictions like Russia, like Iran, like North Korea. And Canadian institutions like Sick Kids Hospital are at the front lines of an international global cyber conflict that is happening. And we have to look at it that way. And we have to invest meaningfully and purposefully with that broader view in mind.
Are we at war, Charles?
War is a complicated
But it's cyber war.
word. It certainly is. Listen, it is certainly a very dangerous dynamic that puts our most vulnerable populations at risk, and we need to take a focused, all of economy, all of society approach to this extremely challenging dynamic.
Going to pick up on that in a second. First of all, we've got a 2021 cyber threat bulletin from the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity, and here's what they found. In the first half of 2021, global ransomware attacks increased by 151% when compared with the first half of 2020. In Canada, the estimated average cost of a data breach, a compromise that includes but is not limited to ransomware, is 6.35 million Canadian dollars. The Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity has knowledge of 235 ransomware incidents against Canadian victims from the 1st of January to the 16th of November 2021. More than half of these victims were critical infrastructure providers. It's important to note, however, that most ransomware events remain unreported. How come, Neil?
I think there's a number of reasons why organizations, individuals aren't reporting. In the enterprise space, there's a reputational risk piece. There are insurance considerations. We're seeing the largest insurance providers now challenging claims, some getting out of the business wholly. I think there is, at the individual level, we're seeing seniors not wanting to lose their independence from their family, and being taken for a fraud often puts fear into them. There's a number of reasons, but I think the most important thing that you highlight in that bulletin is the unreported side. We think we have a handle on this issue, and not just for concerted efforts not to report. I think there's so many more that just are unknown. You know, the amount of things I look at in my inbox every morning that I just kind of dismiss as phishing. If someone was knocking on my door to commit a similar type of fraud, my likelihood to call my local police is much higher than it is for all those phishing schemes. We do not have a true societal understanding of the magnitude of this challenge.
We don't. Why don't we?
I think partially because of the nature of the threat actor. This is a voluminous game. You know, the technologies we're using in everyday business that you use here at TVO to automate a lot of things, the cyber criminal also has access to. And we end up in things like critical infrastructure because there's harm more than just money. If I can put a young child's health at risk, if I can take people off the energy grid for multiple days, these are things we've actually seen. The propensity to pay by management goes up. And that's why the number on those ransomware payments goes up. Cyber criminals, it was mentioned earlier, are business people. They're unscrupulous business people, but they are business people, and they will go where the rewards are, especially when the risks are low. So they are coming to things like critical infrastructure because there's harm that can be seen beyond just money.
You're at McMaster University.
Yes, I am.
Do you know if you've been hit?
When we get lots of attempts that come to any organization, and we have tools that watch these kind of attempts, sort of the knocking at the door that we talk about, through people sending straight emails, trying to get students, staff, or faculty to click on things. And we, with the investment of some resources, have been successful to catch that early and prevent and mitigate that. But what I will say is all organizations are having attempts at them daily, multiple times a day, sometimes multiple times a minute. And it's being able to catch it early, prevent it early, and then if there is something, being able to get back running again really quickly.
So let's assume Mac's been hit. You're at Toronto Metropolitan University. We assume you've been the target of various attacks as well. How do you stay ahead of it?
Well, you invest. You invest in people, process, and technology really are the key dynamics to keeping our society and our economy safe. And we need to start with people. I mean, this is a question, a challenge about training people to meet the labor market shortage in cybersecurity. In the midst of all of these attacks that we're seeing and everything that you're talking about in terms of this growth in cybersecurity attacks, the growth in ransomware attacks, we are significantly understaffed in this country in terms of the number of cybersecurity professionals that we have in security operations centers working these problems. So we need to have a personnel solution. We need to flood the zone with thousands more trained cybersecurity professionals. We need to do that right now. That's a key solution.
Okay, I'm going to say something here that's going to get me in trouble in the building, but I'm going to say it anyway, because somebody mentioned here we need an all-hands-on-deck approach. And we, I think just in the last couple of weeks here at TVO, When we get emails from outside, at the very top of every email, there is a banner that now says, this is an email from outside the organization. Please be careful when you, okay? And it's only been 2 weeks since those things started showing up on our emails. We were talking about this the other day when we had a meeting. People aren't really paying attention to it anymore because they see it all the time now. And it may, sorry guys in the building, it may have a perverse effect of actually having us, tune it out because we just see it all the time. Question, is that the helpful approach to getting a handle on this problem?
Yeah, I think it's one tool. I think education, let's call it education, is one tool. Cybersecurity used to be the purview of like the 3 propeller heads in the back. Today it's the purview of everyone, right from the entry-level intern through to Steve Paikin at TVO. Actually executives tend to be, great targets because they're busy people, they click.
I'm not an executive, just for the record.
Sure, the well-paid on-air staff.
Okay, that I am. Okay, yeah.
So I think, the education piece Charles is making is important across the organization, and it has to be done in a manner that's engaging. It can't just be one more task that I have to get through every day. That being said, I also think we have to be going deep. So going wide, but also going deep. And I mean that both within organizations, but in society as well. Earlier we talked about whether cyber today is war. I actually describe it as a Hobbesian state of nature. The social contract online is totally different than our societal contract. If someone steals $2,000 from my mother's home, police investigate it. But today, it really takes something like a $2 million threat to a bank in Canada that gets people moving because we have to triage in our public safety organizations. And I understand the why. But that is rewriting the social contract. So one place I think we really need to be spending time on the education, training, is in our police agencies. And I don't just mean the big national ones. I'm talking about small, local, provincial. This is an all hands on deck situation.
Right. Sheldon, bottom of page 2. Let's do the threat assessment here. The Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity released a national cyber threat assessment. This is a report for the years 2023 and 24. And it summarized 5 key judgments. Here we go. Ransomware, they say, is a persistent threat to Canadian organizations. Critical infrastructure is increasingly at risk from cyber threats. State-sponsored cyber threat activity is affecting Canadians. Cyber threat actors are attempting to influence Canadians that could degrade trust in online spaces. And finally, disruptive technologies bring new opportunities and new threats, to be sure. Let's talk, Charles, let's talk about state-sponsored cyber threat activity. State-sponsored, so I think we tend to think of this as a bunch of kids in their basement just out of control. You're saying governments are doing this around the world now?
Yes, and your point is a very good one. We need to stop thinking about cybersecurity attacks, in particular ransomware attacks, as a teenager in their parents' basement, spending their free time causing mischief. It is not that. It is a multi-billion-dollar global industry, operates with supply chains, operates with vendors, operates with sophisticated technologies, research and development, highly innovative, and it operates with the tacit approval of sovereign governments that not only endure ransomware attackers operating from their jurisdictions, but want them to operate from their jurisdictions. The Russian government has been very clear that they actually endorse the activities of a number of the ransomware attackers that are operating from their jurisdiction. So that's the fundamental dynamic.
Okay, you mentioned Russia and Iran before. We don't do this, do we? Does the Canadian government sanction this stuff?
I don't believe it does. I don't believe that the Canadian government certainly doesn't sanction ransomware attackers operating from Canadian territory. And most of them don't. I mean, as we've discussed already, the fundamental dynamic here is that these are ransomware attackers that are launching their attacks from foreign jurisdictions where our laws do not apply, and the opportunities to extend our laws to those individuals are not available. We are not going to be able to extradite cybersecurity ransomware attackers from Russia, from Iran, from North Korea. So they're operating with impunity.
Gotcha. Tracy, the Internet of Things. Maybe we just take 30 seconds and explain what that is and how complicated it thus becomes as a part of this discussion.
So Internet of Things are devices that we all have around, for instance, in our homes. You may have a thermostat, and when you put your thermostat in, you connected it to the internet, you put in some kind of a code. That is an Internet of Things device. Or your new dryer that you put into your house. In organizations, we have devices that run heating and cooling in buildings, alarm systems. They're all connected to the internet in some way. And it becomes really, really critical then that we are undertaking good practices to understand how to prevent that Internet of Things device from becoming a toehold for the cyber criminals. And
Because they can hack into this.
yeah, they're everywhere in all facets of our life. Gaming systems that young kids run, the types of devices that they have. So when people install them and put them in place and they're connected in their homes and in their workplaces, it's really important to have them segmented off of, in a special place in the network. You've got to put layers of controls in place so that they don't become a toehold. It's not often the thing that we think cyber criminals are after. It's the toehold that they're looking to get in.
Because once they've got the toehold, what?
Then they can move around into an environment, whether it's in your home or in your business, and they're looking for what's of value, what to carry out, whatever kind of exploit and whatever motivation they have. And as cyber professionals, we're trying to think about, well, what are they trying to do? How do we put layers to prevent them from getting in? And it's not just technology, it's people's behaviors as well. So you may get emails or those emails with the banners, and it's reminding you to look at that email, and if there's a link in there and you weren't expecting it, to not click on it. Right. So we can invest so much we want in technology. We also need to invest in security culture building throughout society for vulnerable people in our businesses, so that it becomes a part of our life. It's like we're driving cars, we educate young people on how to drive. When I was driving in on the 407, I saw a sign reminding me to not look at my phone when I'm driving. That's education, that's culture building. We need to do the same in this world that we live in that's super interconnected, and understand that if you're going to bring in a device in your home, like a doorbell that's smart with a camera, that's an IoT device. That's
Internet of Things.
An Internet of Things device. That's a hook to potentially get in. And there's great advice on the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity Get Cyber Safe site that's meant for all citizens to get at, to help you go in and understand what you can do to make it safe.
I wonder, Neil, if you're seeing any evidence of a pushback against this. Our lives have become increasingly technologically complicated. Do you see evidence of people saying, you know what, I'm just not going to get a credit card, or I'm not going to get that fancy kind of television set that hooks me up to the rest of the world in lots of trouble? Seeing any evidence of that?
Yeah, the greatest pushback I see is post-incident, right? So I mean, growing up, if your house was hit by a burglar, you then did the natural thing and got an alarm system, right? And I think that's what we're seeing here. The challenges in some of these crimes, and we always, and I'm not picking on the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity, but cybersecurity is always talked about in a global context or a national context in dollars and cents. One of the most prolific forms of cybercrime today, by statistics, is child sexual exploitation online. That carries lifelong implications. The interesting thing I find is parents of children of Silicon Valley executives often aren't allowed to use the consumer-facing technologies. So a lot of the things we talked about in the IoT world have a lot of standards against them, security standards and other ones. Driverless car will go through rigorous testing. But Charles and I can create technology in our basement today that targets children at 6 years old and uses behavioral psychology to keep them on that platform for hours, which is a great tool if you're a child exploiter. And there is no standards. I'll just give an analog kind of parallel. I happen to serve on the board of the YMCA in Canada, and we had to change our playgrounds every 10 years, even though they were perfectly safe. There was a standard there that says, hey, we want to preempt children hurting themselves, and we're going to make sure these things are safe. And we change that at an extreme cost to a charity. But we can start a social network tomorrow with zero standards that focuses on capturing the minds of children.
So preemptively getting out ahead of this is the way to go.
I would say that building out, we're now beyond the Web 1.0. People talk about we're in the Web 3 phase. And I think safety for the most vulnerable, and I'm not one calling for overburdensome red tape here, but we need some minimum expectations of standards. A lot of these technologies that are created targeting children, the data sits in foreign jurisdictions. So even when we know something has happened and we try to investigate as a society through our police, there's lengthy treaty-based processes to get critical evidence to investigate. This is not just a technical problem. This is a governance problem. It's an international problem. We have to start treating it more than just a ones and zeros challenge. These are real human lives that are being compromised.
Charles, do you see evidence yet of a pushback by people who think, okay, we've gone too far, my life is too dependent on technology, I'm too vulnerable, I'm dialing it back?
No, I don't. I see a full adoption of a very broad and wide array of technologies that are increasingly connected to the internet, that gather increasingly sophisticated kinds of data about their subjects, and that use that data potentially for the benefit of the individual that's wearing the device, but also for other parties. And we're just, in my view, at the beginning of this. We're going to see more devices that are more and more intrusive, particularly, in my view, in the medical field and other kinds of wearables and other devices that are really going to cross what we think of the line of human autonomy and start to engage our most personal beings. And so this is a major, major challenge. So no, I don't see a pushback to it. In fact, I see an increasing embrace.
In which case, we need to do what in order to deal with the fact that this is not going to be less a part of our lives going forward, it's going to be a bigger chunk of our lives going forward?
We need to do the things we've just been talking about. We need to focus on education. We need to focus on training. We need to focus on a culture of privacy and cybersecurity.
But
and we need to.
You say we need to focus.
Yeah.
Who's the we?
Well,
someone's got to educate us all. Who does that?
Well, I think it has to be led by governments, and I think the governments are doing a good job, in initial stages in doing that. But I think it's, as we've talked about, I think it's an all of society approach. I think governments can lead the way, but I think the private sector and the public sector need to be involved as well. We all need to be engaged in this. It's going to take every one of us to be educated about best practices, and all of us to, adopt a cybersecurity culture that recognizes what the risks are, recognizes what the challenges are, recognizes the role we all have to play in finding solutions to this problem. So it's going to be all of us.
At McMaster, you've got thousands and thousands of students there every year, and I bet they never think about this. Are you doing anything in terms of education to get them to heads up on this?
Yes, absolutely. And I would say, too, that I think the generation that's coming in, I have daughters that are in their 20s, they actually are quite conscientious about cybersecurity and safety. They just finished post-secondary education. They were students on major campuses. And they're very careful of what they post and don't post. And they're like, Mom, you shouldn't post those things. So I think there is a generation.
They're the only ones. Trust me, they're the only 20-somethings I know who are careful about what they post.
Yeah, so we do a lot at McMaster, all the way from when students are prospective students thinking to come to McMaster. When they come on board, we have training, we have modules that they can take. We also participate in the annual Cybersecurity Awareness Month of October, and we run a campaign. We hook into social media, which is where a lot of young folks spend their time, pushing out those messages and providing them with training and awareness campaigns. And we make it fun, gamify it a little bit, so that there's some contests that they can enter in, so that it sticks and becomes a part of what they do. Also, I think there's a lot of opportunities we have ahead of us to work with students in both high schools, colleges, and universities to get them involved in building education awareness campaigns. Get out there. They all have to do community service as part of what they need to do. I'm involved in a lot of women in technology kind of groups because we're looking at trying to build the next workforce of the future in cyber. And I think there's projects and initiatives we can collectively undertake. And I don't think we need to just wait for governments to come in. As cyber professionals throughout the marketplace, we need to get together and figure out things that we can do to get programs, let's say, out to seniors, get it out to the personal support workers who interact with seniors and help them make that phone call to their kids.
We're down to our last few minutes here, and I want to introduce artificial intelligence to the conversation now. How does that change the equation of what we've been talking about?
I don't think it changes it that much. It's a different technology area from IoT. It's going to enable things like IoT, but it's going to take us forward with more and more automation, less and less worker needed. But we've been talking about the glass half empty for this whole conversation, and let's talk about the opportunity side, right? A strong economy will have cybersecurity as a foundational piece to it, whether it's AI or technology, general technologies. The opportunity, if Canada is truly going to be an AI leader, which a lot of folks want it to be, it'll require cybersecurity and trust to be foundational to the things we develop using these tools.
I guess I'd ask the same question that I just asked Tracy to you. You're at Toronto Metropolitan University, again, right in the middle of a big city, thousands and thousands of students. Are they hip to this?
Yeah, I think they're beginning to recognize the cybersecurity issues. It's obviously in the news every single day, and there are education programs at TMU, just as there are at McMaster, to make the students aware of what's happening. And just picking up on Neil's point, which I think is a really good one around the opportunity side. There's an opportunity for Canada to be at the very forefront of cybersecurity in the world in terms of economic development. It's one of the fastest growing sectors. And there are amazing companies that have grown up in Canada related to cybersecurity, and we need more of that. We have all the pieces. We've got all the skills, we've got all the people here, all the ingredients to create a really world-leading cybersecurity sector. And so that's something that's very, very exciting. So just to Neil's point about, we've been talking about the threats and the risks. Those are absolutely true, but they also create this internationally needed opportunity that Canada can really step into.
I appreciate you don't want to leave the impression that the glass is only half empty. You think it's a little half full. But I must confess, having talked to the three of you for the last half an hour, I'm more terrified now than I was before, and I bet a lot of our viewers feel the same way. Tell us why we shouldn't be terrified at the prospects here.
You should be terrified, but that's a posture, right? That if you let your guard down, right? What's different about cybersecurity and cybercrime relative to previous frauds are they're constantly evolving. Sextortion right now, we got a good chuckle of the kids, but right now one of the key themes that the FBI director talks about is kids of targets being gone after so that they can extort the parents who are prolific people. It evolves every day, every second actually of every day. Cybercrime is evolving. So if we have that posture, but then we bring both the glass half empty and glass half full perspective and say, this is not only a challenge for the world, this is an opportunity. We can start addressing that. We can start focusing our investments at the university levels, at the capital levels, at the talent levels, at all levels on the opportunity side. But you really can't start on the opportunity side when your key institutions that hold up your economy and your society, like healthcare, like banking, are underwater under this issue.
Okay, all hands on deck, as we have said. Tracy, Neil, Charles, thanks so much for joining us here on TVO tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.